Good evening, folks. It is February 10th today at 5:30 p.m. in the evening. I am not logging in from Tacoma, Washington today. In fact, I am logging in from Seattle, Washington. I made the move a few weeks ago. So it's a very wonderful, joyous event, which we are celebrating here today. I've got some beef bourguignon on the stove. And in the meantime, I thought it would be a great time to review the Thomas Swirl Cinnamon Raisin Bread. It's been a while since my last installment, which was over a year ago. My lawyer told me that I needed to take a step back from recording due to the risk of someone developing a parasocial relationship with me, in which case they would then send me a pipe bomb or something in the mail. We don't want that to happen. But so we're going to be jumping into it. Again, this is the Thomas Swirl Bread. This is a very well-known brand for cinnamon raisin bread enthusiasts across the country. I would say that it is, it has a similar popularity level as some of the other big names like Sun-Maid, perhaps, maybe the Pepper Ridge Farms as well, which we will be doing a review on soon. But so let's just jump into it right now. So again, like we're going by the criteria. Let me show you. We have the cinnamon or the Thomas Swirl Bread. The first question that it needs to pass is it above 100 calories? And from there it goes ingredients, aesthetic, aroma, flavor, raisin content, and moisture. Each one of these is 1 out of 10, at which point there will be a composite score at the end. So, getting into it, we're looking at the cinnamon raisin, or the Thomas Swirl Cinnamon Raisin Bread, and is it hitting that 100 calorie mark? No, it is not. It's sitting at 90, which is the same as the Sun-Maid Cinnamon Raisin Bread. And as we know from that video, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to be bad cinnamon raisin bread. We just need to be aware of that going into this. It's one of those alarm bells that we have. So if there were 100 alarm bells on a board in front of me, that's going to be ringing one of them. But again, it's only one, so we'll see what happens. So that has not met that threshold, so we're going to give that an X. It's at 90 calories, but the slices are fairly small, so maybe the caloric density to square footage of the cinnamon raisin bread will even out somewhere. There's probably a break-even point. So now we're going to be jumping into ingredients. So there's 14 servings per container. I'm belting this off the nutrition facts. We got 14 servings per container. Total fat, 1.5 grams, 2% of your daily intake. No saturated fats, no trans fats, no 0.5 grams of polyunsaturated fats, and then mono unsaturated fats at 0 grams. And then at which point we have a little bit of sodium, 6% of your daily intake, which is fairly high for some reason. I can't help but feel like that. And then for total carbohydrates, we have 18 grams. There's 2 grams of protein in this, so that alongside the sodium, this could be something that, people who work out a lot, it might be something you want to look into. Who knows? And then for each slice, we have 7 grams of sugar, 2 of which are added. So that's telling us that the majority of that is coming from the raisins. That is a very good sign, I would argue. But we'll see once we get into it more. And then as for iron, 4% of your daily intake, per day, whatever, as daily means. And then finally, looking over at the ingredients, enriched wheat flour is our first ingredient. Datum, whey, soy lecithin, calcium propionate, which we've seen as an ingredient in other ones as well. Honestly, now, other than the thiamine mononitrate, which is vitamin B1, so that is actually very good for you, I'm not really seeing anything on here which is really making me worried, which is kind of nice. So gut reaction looking at the ingredients and looking at that, I'm pretty excited about it. So I'm going to be giving that high marks. That's going to be a 9 out of 10. Also, I'm finally going to be following Carlos's advice. I'm going to try and pare this down to, oh, we're already at 5 minutes. So I'm going to be trying to pare this down to 15 minutes, just so that, you know, I can appeal to the short form video crowd. Yeah, made in Horsham, Pennsylvania. That's a great goddamn state, you know, very beautiful, strong people from there. So keep that in mind. Moving into aesthetic, the bag itself is terrible in my opinion. The purple and orange and brown, it feels like it's some cheap Halloween knockoff from the mid-2000s. So I'm really not digging that. I do like, however, that the top of it, this blue stripe, has got some coaches on it with some man whipping the horses. So that's from an animal cruelty angle, also not good, in fact. So that's something to keep in mind. I wish it left a little more to be, you know, desired. This is really just showing off the entire loaf for you. So you don't get to use your imagination at all, which is very frustrating compared to, naturally, the other two brands that we've reviewed, where it's a surprise when you open it. So aesthetically, pretty bad, in my opinion. And then the piece of bread itself, I took it out of the bag and the goddamn crust fell off of it. Like, I was being extremely gentle, you know me, and it was broken from the beginning. So aesthetically, that is abysmal, in my opinion. The bread itself does look decent, but if the damn thing's falling apart before you even eat it, then what are we doing here? So aesthetically, I'm going to be giving that a 3 out of 10 due to the animal abuse marks as well. Aroma, though, you know, we started off strong, we dipped pretty heavily, but we still have 4 criteria here. So we could even out pretty well. So I'm going to be giving this a big old sniff test right now. It smells fresh. I will give it that. It does not have that cold, weedy smell to it that you get with some breads. Like it's been like frozen and then thawed or something, or heavily refrigerated. It smells very fresh, which is a wonderful thing. And then the piece of bread itself, yeah, it smells pretty goddamn good, to be quite honest. You know, aesthetically, it's not great, but the aroma is very strong with this cinnamon raisin bread. So, you know, I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. You know, so I think we're going back up, you know, because as we all know, aromas are very critical because it's you see it with your eyes, then you smell it, then you eat it, you know, so that's the second step. So I'm going to be giving that pretty high marks again. I think that's going to be an 8 out of 10 for me. So 20 out of 30 right now. So far it's hitting a 66%, which is like a D, you know, but we'll see what happens with flavor. So going into flavor, I have a toasted and buttered piece, and I have the untoasted, unbuttered piece as well. So we're going to be doing the untoasted, unbuttered first. See, look at that. It's just like, it falls apart. It's ridiculous. There's no structural integrity to this thing. Pretty solid. You know, I'm not really getting anything strong to begin with. It's all coming at me in a very standard way, which isn't that surprising. But let's see toasted buttered. You know, I got unsalted Tillamook for this thing, but the sodium content of this slice of bread might be high enough that it like gives a salty edge to the butter, which could be a good thing in the end. I'm gonna give this another bite, for God's sake. The raisins really caramelized nicely in the toaster. I mean, anything with enough butter on it tastes pretty goddamn good. We've got good browning on it. Some may argue a little too much in moments. I'm still figuring out this toaster. But a very nice earthy flavor. The cinnamon comes through a little quietly, but the raisins are there naturally. I would give this a 7.5 out of 10. By itself, just, you know, plain, untoasted. It's a little quiet. You can identify it as cinnamon raisin bread, but not in any strong manner. But when it's toasted and buttered, it really does balance it out nicely, and it really does give it a good edge. So I'm going in for that 7.5 out of 10. So finally, or not finally, but, you know, now we're at raisin content, which is, as we all know, an extremely important and contentious topic in the cinnamon raisin bread community, because, oh my God, look at that. The next one came out with the fucking dangling, I shouldn't be swearing in these, with the dangling top, and it just pulled right off. That wouldn't make it through a toaster. But let's, you know, let's all have a good laugh and let's pretend that the top didn't come off. So I've reattached it. We're looking at raisin content. I am seeing decent coverage in here. It's got a very distinct swirl in it. So that would, you know, that actually might lend itself to aesthetic now that we're looking at it a bit more. But I mean, the top coming off is just brutal. There's decent raisins. God damn it. There's decent raisins in this thing, but as you can see, a lot of them have stratified to the outside of the bread. So by the time you're getting to the middle, it's quite empty, which is an important thing to remember in this. Their rolling techniques probably aren't up to date. You know, it could be Soviet technology. We don't know for certain. But as we saw in the Sun-Made and the Franz, we were not having that issue of the raisin stratification. So it's something to be aware of. I think maybe they put too much investment into their cinnamon technology, cinnamon swirl technology, because that is a very clear defined pattern on this, which is quite nice. We are getting a cinnamon swirl, like the eye of a hurricane. But the raisin, and I'm gonna eat all this. You know, there's 3 slices here, but I'm gonna eat all this. None of this is gonna go to waste. But the raisin content leaves a little bit to be desired. I think if it was a little more spread out, it would be better. But as it stands right now, we're seeing a slight dip. I think I'm going to give that a 7.5 out of 10 again, because there are enough, but it's not good spread, you know. But with the cinnamon swirl there, I'm going to bump it up to a 4 out of 10 for the aesthetics, not a 3 out of 10. So we saw an improvement there. Finally, we're getting into moisture. I would argue that this is the strongest criteria for the Thomas Swirl Bread. We see really just like some heavy moisture in this. You don't need to have like a glass of water or tea in order to get this thing down. It's got enough moisture in it by itself, which is an extremely good trait for these things to have. You don't want it dry. You don't want to need butter. Butter should be just an addition. The bread should be able to speak for itself on that manner. And I believe that it is hitting a very high mark on that. Some might argue that there's too much moisture in this thing because it has very little structural integrity. In which case, you know, we need to look at that. And so, you know, you can take it or leave it on that. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for moisture. Yeah, a 9 out of 10 I think is a quality rating for that. So again, it's hitting pretty high on ingredients, aroma, moisture content, and it's fairly standard on flavor and raisin content. And then aesthetic just drives it pretty far down. So I'm going to add these up real quick using my pen here. So we got 13 out of 20. And then we got 15.5 out of 20. Shit. Okay, and then we got 16.5 out of 20. And then 15.5 plus 16.5 is, well, 17 plus 15. That's 32, I think. And then plus 13. So that's 45 out of 60, which means that we are hitting a 75% with this as a composite store right there, 75%. I think that's fairly solid. Again, this is, not a cinnamon raisin bread, which I would be, writing sonnets about by any metric. But I do feel like it is good quality bread, although the aesthetics of the packaging are awful. And you need to be careful about if you accidentally get a loaf with, the top falling off. That's not really something that you can check before you buy the bag, which is a huge bummer. But, overall, we are hitting that 75%. It's a solid middle to slightly back of the pack. And I would recommend that, you check it out. It's worth knowing what it's like so that you can speak to it later on. Do definitely toast it and butter it. That is really a huge benefit to this thing, in my opinion. But then beyond that, we're doing good. Okay, so there is our third review. Again, it's the Thomas Swirl Bread. There's all the metrics right there. And if you have any questions or disagreements, feel free to comment. Send me a pipe bomb in the mail, something like that. Do whatever you want to do. It's a free country. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your February 10th evening. I'm gonna go stir my beef bourguignon, and I look forward to seeing you next time. So, good evening and good night.